VoyMonk video voiceover. Yep, Christmas is just around the corner. And, I'm thinking about the Christmas spirit specifically. And the fact that, I think it's important to at least have an idea of what that means. On my last video voiceover, I had talked about the 80s and why they were so special to me. And the reason that they were special to me had to do with the fact that I was in it. I was, a time that I lived and the time that I experienced, for better or for worse. And the fact that living in the 80s, I didn't necessarily know then what I would know now. And because of obviously a lot of things, including age, my perspective shift. So as I transition as far as into this video voiceover, as far as being in the spirit, I make the connection because I think the spirit has to do with living in the now and the present, and that being a part of the memories that years from now, 10, 20, 30 years from now, you may look at some of the things that happen now. I mean, people that you haven't even met or known aren't even alive yet who might experience or look back on something that we lived or you lived and have a certain impression about things. But no matter what it is, the fact is that it's one thing to have an idea about something. It's another thing to realize it, to actually apply it, and to actually live it. I mean, people, at least when I was growing up, talked a lot about the heyday and back then, and they had a lot of ideas about the way society would be and that kind of thing too. And moving into this or that. And the point is that things change, the more sometimes they stay the same. And so, not making critiques, not judging, not making any pronouncements or giving advice, but I'm saying myself personally, when I talk about the Christmas spirit, I think about what it actually means in the present, in the now, when doing it. As far as Christmas, I think Christmas is a miracle in terms of what it can do, and the love and the time that can be shared that really isn't replicated. Time is the fire in which we burn. Got that from Star Trek. And currency of time is a thing that we can never get a refund on. I mean, once it's spent, it's spent. Rushing through the holidays, no matter what they are, time itself, I think, can be something that one looks back and thinks fondly of, and sometimes even with regret. But I think also, when it comes to the spirit, as far as living in the now, I think when we rush through things to get them over with, I'm a person that likes to avoid drama. I avoid things even to my own peril, because that's part of who I am, which contributes to the other issues that I have. But when it comes to taking the time to not rush through things, even though it might be sometimes painful, or it might be, some bad with some good, I think it's important to, at least for myself, to live in the now because of the things that I've learned about those years in the past, both good and bad. And the things that I knew and what I know now is that I think if I did have that DeLorean to go back in time, I definitely would. for the most part, because yeah, there's some things we were without and things that we didn't have, and there were things that we did. But the funny thing is that while we didn't have the things that we couldn't probably imagine today, it was very much those who, for the most part, were rushing towards it and to get to that place that we kind of are today, which I find ironic. I find it strange that where we always long to get to seems to always end up being the one place we wish we could sometimes come back from. Because, again, I think it has less to do with what's going on as much as it has to do with what we're doing, our state of mind, and how we've spent that time. Was it rushing to go get a Christmas present? Was it shopping at a Black Friday? Was it worrying about things like whether, a plane was going to be a few hours early or a few hours late, or some mode of travel that was going to have traffic? I think, while we're with the people that we love, the people that make life worth it, that we're spending the time to observe maybe our world and trying to make it a better place, living in that moment and making those memories beyond. The other thing we didn't have in the 80s were selfies and being able to take a picture. You'd have to take a mental picture. You have to actually be in the moment, which many times we weren't. But like I said, to me, the Christmas spirit is about that, living in the gift of the time that we have, and the love and the miracle and the special the special purpose behind why we do any of this. I mean, all of it, which is, it's there has to be something, at least to me, that has purpose, that there's a reason that we do these things other than just to be doing them as a reflex, as a way to kill the time until the next thing that we aren't sure of. So when I think of the Christmas spirit as we go into next week, I think that it behooves us to think about those things. While I think most people will probably be stressing about, wondering what's going to happen. Like I said, that's not a suggestion, like I said, but I think for me, in my experience, that's just something that I have been doing my best to try to do. Because I'll be honest, I have rushed through things before that, I necessarily could appreciate the time that I was in. Christmas time. I would say when I look back at the Christmas, like from the 80s and 90s and that kind of thing, I think at the time I kind of seen much of that as mostly terrible. I seen it as a time and place I usually wanted to kind of get away from, at least in terms of, aside from, the things that I mentioned, like the Christmas lights, the cookies, the festivities, and that kind of thing. I mean, there's the spirit of what is happening, but depending on who you are and where you are, I think it can be kind of difficult to appreciate that. And so now, when I'm doing this video voiceover and I'm talking about the spirit of Christmas and what that means, that's pretty much what I'm talking about. It meaning to not only just celebrate the reason for the season and the reason that it's special to begin with, but to take time to reflect, to be with those that you love. I mean, I'm with my mom, and she's 73 years old, and I want to spend every single second of every single day as long as I can forever. Like I said, listening to her and knowing her, and making sure that I can make her as happy as I possibly can, as it possibly be, in terms of letting her know she's loved and not alone. Because believe it or not, in this season, there sure are a lot of people that are alone. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that they're alone all by themselves. And there are lots of people that are. I mean, they have absolutely nobody. But at the same time, I think if you can hear what I'm saying in terms of being alone, but not always being by yourself and still being alone, I think there's a lot of that too. Because I think right now it can be specifically difficult to let other people know that we care, or that we're hurting, or that we're going through something, or that we need someone. And sometimes the hardest thing is we don't even always know what we need, and so therefore it's even harder to be there for other people that need us. And I think in many cases and many times that can be viewed in the ways that it often gets. I mean, we can only see from our own perspectives as far as visually, but also I think mentally. I think people kind of phrase it as I'm trying to think of the first person syndrome or something, or a star of the, first character syndrome or something like that. I don't know. The point is that, we're oftentimes inside our own heads, especially in times like this when we rush and, we're doing all the things that we do love to do, but the journey that we make while doing it is something that oftentimes will be the things that we will usually maybe try not to remember immediately, but later on we'll go, maybe it wouldn't have been all right to, spend a little extra time with a family or relative because maybe they missed a plane, or maybe instead of buying every Christmas gift that would eventually need to be paid back, the one thing that could be done is, just sit down and have a conversation and really see how loved ones are doing. I mean, really, not just filling the air, right? I mean, that can be a tough thing to do because sometimes people don't really want to know, and sometimes people really don't want to say or tell you. And, when I talk about the Spirit and what it's able to do, and the fact that I do believe that love is the miracle, and I think that is what has the ability to change everything and anything, to create possibilities. I think the greatest gift that we can get is that love and that understanding and that empathy and that connection, that oftentimes I think gets a bit overlooked, for things that are probably really rather less important. And they certainly 20, 30 years from now might not be the things that are ultimately cherished in terms of the time spent with those that we love, that we care about, that, people will miss when, that's no longer an option. And so, like I said, I think it's important when it's talking about Christmas that, the lights, the music, the season, the commercials can be fun. And, getting and receiving, physical items That's one thing. But I think the actual lasting thing is to take the time. I mean, to be in the moment. I mean, nothing else, to be in the moment. And that's what I'm doing my best at doing in terms of the spirit of the Christmas. Is I've talked about being appreciative and and knowing what it is that's important. Because I think the other thing it's easy to do is to convince ourselves that our wants are things that we need, and sometimes convincing ourselves that it is more important to have a position or an image or an idea rather than the reality of something, like actually having a relationship and an understanding of what is important. Because I think probably the thing that one of the bigger things I've learned about how unimportant stuff is that if you ever had your chance and or been really, really poor and you had to pawn something, right? Have you ever done that? You ever brought something in that maybe you overspent and you maybe needed money for a bill or something like that, and you had to pawn something? And if you ever go into a pawn shop, I mean, maybe you don't pay attention to it in the moment or whatever, but you don't like necessarily being there. And if you go through it and stuff, usually you may have a certain set idea and a price in your head for what you want to get for this VCR or something silly that you bought that maybe you spent a great deal of money for, but only to go up to the pawn shop dealer and they'll literally offer you next to 10 cents on the dollar, right? And it's just like, you're not alone, right? All this stuff, right? And it's not you, it's other people that bring in speakers and all kinds of stuff, right? And they're pawning it for way less than they thought it was worth, certainly less than they paid for it. But in the end, the point is that it's not. It's not important. And you think about how much of your money would be wasted. I mean, think about time and effort spent on things that really don't matter. I mean, the fact is you could totally live without whatever it is you're pawning, which is why you're there, because it's is meant and sent to pay for something else, right? But the truth is that, like I said, if you maybe had looked at it from that perspective to begin with, I mean, you could see all the things that, like I said, people just pawn off for almost nothing, because in the end, it's really just stuff. And so, like I said, when it comes to the spirit of Christmas, I mean, you can give gifts, but it's just stuff. It's just things. And while it can be great and it can be fun, I think the thing that's actually important is spending the time with loved ones, spending the time being in the moment. If you don't have a lot of loved ones, or even if you're all by yourself, spending the time using your time with whatever you got, and hopefully spreading that love and spreading kindness to other people at the very least, if you can. I think decency is underrated as well. And so, like I said, for me, that's what the Christmas spirit means to me in terms of what I'll do, and not what anybody and everybody else should do at all. Just my perspective and experience from the things I've learned. And so, like I said, going into next week, Christmas, I kind of hope that, and this is probably just me wishing, another wish, I would wish that, people do find those kinds of ways of at least connecting. Not necessarily where you can't, but certainly where you can. And like I said, and being in the moment, because it doesn't seem to last forever. And it seems to go by sometimes faster in some moments than it does others. And you never know. You might find yourself 10, 20 years down the line reminiscing about a time that most people can only imagine, and even fewer can speculate and really know what it was like to live right here, right now, doing what's being done. And so, like I said, that is my feeling about the Christmas spirit and what it means. And so that is going to do it for this Friday's video voiceover. I normally don't do these every week, and this, I've kind of made this a regular thing over the last few weeks because I really enjoyed doing them, and sometimes there's some things on my mind that just aren't contained in a vlog. So that's what these are there for. But like I said, next week is going to be Christmas, and so we'll be counting down and winding things down out for the rest of the year. And so hopefully, if you like what you hear, maybe you participate, maybe you subscribe, but hopefully you listen in any parts. Here, there, it's no saga. Anywhere that you pick up is just fine. And if you want to participate, you can. So until next time, that's going to be it. Take care.